Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the podcast. Listen, I'm excited for this one because you never know when you're about to have a conversation and you're going to walk away from it being just a whole lot smarter. Well, this is going to be one of those conversations, and I am sitting with none other than New York Times best-selling author, the man himself, Ryan. Blair's in the building. What's going on, bro?
How you doing, my brother? Thank you for having me.
Listen, man, I'm excited to kind of bring you here on the show because, we were talking about it, briefly before we hopped on. I know you mentor people like Gerard Adams. You've done so many different things. We'll get into like the coaching, the accountability, and the mastery. But somebody right now, like this could be their first time ever listening or ever checking you out on our platform. They want to know more about you. Could you take us back to like the young Ryan growing up?
Yeah, it's an interesting journey that I've been on. I started my life in the middle class. My dad was an engineer and my mom was a homemaker. And my dad got addicted to drugs and he disappeared when I was 13 years old. I would never see him again. And we went from the middle class to poor. We lived in, abject poverty. My mom was barely, struggling to take care of myself and my siblings. She was making a little bit over minimum wage and living a paycheck by paycheck. And, she really had a difficulty with alcohol. So I had an alcoholic mother, and I love her. She's no longer with me, and a drug-addicted father. And I then turned to the streets, and I was in and out of gangs, in and out of juvenile hall a number of times, and got arrested a number of times, and was just heading nowhere quick. And then at the age of 17 years old, my mom found me a mentor, and his name was Robert Hunt. He's no longer with us, and he took a liking toward me and believed in me and started teaching me what it's like to be wealthy. So by the time I was 17, I'd seen the middle, I'd seen poverty, and I'd seen wealthy. And I made a decision shortly after getting mentored by Robert Hunt that I would choose to be wealthy as opposed to live in the middle or live in poverty any longer.
Man, listen, I like this, man, because I can already kind of tell where this is about to go, and it's one of those elevated conversations. All right, this is about to be an elevated conversation. Let's break this down though, right? The importance, right? You said from 13 to 17, but then your mom's like, listen, we gotta get you a mentor, right? Like, how important is it for somebody to establish, hey, I need a mentor in my life?
Well, especially for those of us that didn't have fathers growing up, we need as many role models as we can get our hands on. Our mothers, God bless them, they can't give us everything we need as men. And as women too, if you don't have a father, you need a mentor. You need to find somebody who's going to bridge that gap. And so it's so important. Now, for those of us who do, or those of you, I should say, who have, good functional parents, you might need a different type of mentor. Our parents aren't always able to meet our needs or help us figure out what we need to figure out in order for us to, fulfill our purpose. So a mentor is crucial to that. And not only did I have my mentor at 17, but I'm blessed to have mentors to this day that, I have in my life. I've had some of the very best of them in business and in coaching. And, I've had basketball coaches as mentors. I've had, business titan as mentors. I've had a ton of mentors in my life. And all of my success that I have, I stand on their shoulders with.
Man, listen, I want to keep diving into this, right? Because you also mentioned something here where you talked about, you chose to be wealthy. I think that's a amazing choice. But people are like saying right now, okay, how can I choose to be wealthy? I mean, I could tell, guys, if you watch this on YouTube, Ryan's in shape, man. So break this down. When you say, okay, you chose to be wealthy, what exactly does that mean?
Well, for one, I knew what I didn't want. So I knew I didn't want to be poor. I knew that the middle class was a sham and it could be ripped away from you at any time. And in the middle class, when I lived in the middle class, I witnessed my home get foreclosed on, my mom's car get repossessed, and I witnessed a lot of trouble over money. Even more trouble over money in the middle class than in poverty. In poverty, you didn't see people struggling so much to keep up with the Joneses. They hustled. In the middle class, there was a lot of people that were complacent, and mediocrity seemed to be the method in the middle class. And so I saw both classes, and I realized I didn't believe in the middle at all. I was like, this is no judgment, but I was like, if you're making $100,000 a year, you're one step away from poverty. You're living paycheck to paycheck. You're one step away from being back on the streets. And I knew that I would never live in a one-bedroom shack again. I knew that I would never live on the streets again. So I had nothing to lose. I had this mindset that all of the life experience that I had, witnessed, it was going to lead me to, a greater destination. And I utilized that mindset. And so when I say I chose to be wealthy, I looked at the people that were wealthy. I reversed engineered them. I analyzed them. I realized they were no smarter than me. I'm physically fit, an active person, so they couldn't win me in a fight. They couldn't beat me in a basketball game. Like, there was no reason why these wealthy people had a whole different lifestyle than I had. And so to me, I just sized them up and said, I'm going after the game you're playing in.
Oh man, my man said he sized them up. Listen, this is clutch. All right, so listen. So you're 17, you get this mentor, right? You say, okay, I choose to be wealthy. As you're doing that, I'm pretty sure there were some things that you were learning that you had to stop doing. I think the problem is so many people get into situations in life and they keep doing old things. What were some of the things that you had to stop doing to get into this new mindset?
Yeah, well, number one, you have to stop thinking the way, we think the way we are taught to think. We are programmed by the environment, by the culture, by our parents, by the music we listen to, by the news media, by Facebook. We're programmed. We are literally supercomputers that have been, programmed and configured incorrectly. And some of that is intentional. Society does want you to be a consumer. Society wants you to compare yourself to others. There's plenty of reasons why society wants you to get a job and work 40 years and live paycheck to paycheck. There's plenty of forces at work that want you to be unhappy living paycheck to paycheck. And so you have to break that code and you have to break that programming and you have to create new programming. And the first thing that I recommend you do is start looking at the false beliefs that you have. So my first mentor, Robert Hunt, told me, I told him one day, well, it takes money to make money. And he says, that's false. It takes this to make money. It takes creativity to make money. It takes ingenuity to make money. And then he showed me, he's like, I buy houses and I use the bank's money, not my money. And so he showed me how in his business of real estate, he wasn't actually using his own money hardly ever to make money. He was using his creativity, his salesmanship, his ingenuity, and his mastery of the sport that he was in real estate. So there's a lot of false beliefs that we have. There's a lot of false narratives that we play, false stories that we tell ourselves. And we have to break from those stories and break from those beliefs. And then that's kind of the deconstruction phase. First, we got to tear down the old house. Then we got to build a new house. And from that new house, we're going to build some new beliefs and some new ideas and visions for ourselves. And then from there, we have to integrate those beliefs, ideas, and visions for ourselves into the new identity that we're creating. And know this, if right now your identity is that of a poor person, you can change your identity to become that of a rich person by doing the work that I just described.
Man, listen, the few people I've ever interviewed, I'm like, damn, I can't wait for this to be over so I can go back and rewatch it. I appreciate that. You're one of those people, you put up a post that I paid attention to, and I think my audience deserves the breakdown of this. The importance of daily habits, right? Like, so many people, say, okay, what should I be doing? So when you think of the word daily habits, like, what is something you can give our audience right now that they should implement and put into their routine?
Yeah, well, I didn't always, my entire career, have the most consistent routine. I do now. I have to tell you that discipline was one of the hardest things for me to figure out because I was never disciplined, but I was very competitive. So I showed up to compete. I'd work out because I wanted to compete, and I'd prepare because I wanted to compete, but I never understood discipline until I learned that discipline is just the accumulation of small restrictions in your life. So restricting the TV a little bit creates more discipline. Restricting going out creates more discipline. Restricting alcohol, restricting weed, restricting, substances that are gonna reduce your ability and your capacity to learn and to grow and to serve. And so the more that we do those restrictions, the greater discipline that we're able to create. And what discipline gives us is that willpower, that ability to be able to look at something and say, I'm going to will my way to the top of the mountain. So my morning routine is very disciplined now, but I built to that discipline by doing these micro challenges. I would challenge myself to restrict caffeine or challenge myself to restrict staying up late so I could wake up early. So that said, I wake up early. So I gave you the method for how to get to a routine that you can stick to and be consistent. And that is just accumulating small, little micro challenges that lead to a point where those little changes create more changes, and then eventually you have changed yourself into perhaps a morning person who wakes up with discipline and who follows a routine. Now, my routine is simple. I wake up in the morning. First thing I do is I drink a lot of water, to cleanse my system and detox. And the next thing that I do, which, is kind of, it's funny, I laugh at it, is I jump into a saltwater bath and I just relax. I meditate, I chill out, I relax, I read a little bit. And that's the way I start my day every single morning, is just starting my day with an act of self-love, learning, growing, cleansing, and detoxing myself. And then I do meditation. And by meditation, I just sit there and I close my eyes and I contemplate on the things that I need to let go of, any negativity that I'm holding on to, anything I brought from the prior day, any conflict, or, as a leader of growing company, there's constantly things that have let me down or set me back that I got to let go of. And so I do that work first in the morning. I cleanse myself, and I do so with the state of gratitude. I'm always thanking God, and I'm always grateful for everything I do have, the air that I breathe, the sun that's rising or the rain that's falling. It doesn't matter what's going on that day. I'm starting it with gratitude. And then from there, I eat healthy, and then I get into the gym. And by the time I start, I wake up between 4:30 and 5:30, depending on how much sleep I need that day. I don't set an alarm. And then I start my day after I've done all of those routines. So I've spent about 3 hours of working out, eating right, cleansing and detoxing, and meditating and contemplating and learning and growing. By doing all of that with my first 3 hours of the day, I have already won the day. By the time I'm talking to you right now, this day has been won. All I got to do is just continue on the momentum that I've already created. And with each step of the day that goes, by, I'm able to gain more momentum and more momentum. And the last thing I'll tell you is during the day, I look for opportunities to turn the negative into positive. When I'm greeted with something negative, like say something happens that I didn't anticipate, or, a project doesn't launch the way I wanted it to, or, a team member doesn't perform the way I want him to, I look for an opportunity to turn that negative into positive. And by doing that, I'm actually growing and strengthening each and every single day. Much like when you tear a muscle, if you heal it correctly, it grows back stronger. All day long, I'm building muscle.
Man, listen, man, I'm over here writing stuff down. Listen, as I'm switching, okay, let me write this down. First 3 hours of the day. Win the first 3 hours of the day, you win the day. And then also too, I like that. I want to jump back here. You said, okay, even if you want the discipline to limit caffeine, right? And also you talked about putting, those restrictors, those barriers to stop you from doing some things. I know a lot of people are drinking caffeine, they're drinking coffee. Like Ryan, is there something else that we could be drinking to make us feel like we got energy?
Well, I used to be an addict of caffeine. I had lots of self-medication issues, and caffeine was one of the things I self-medicated with all day long. So I have no judgment, by any means. I've just run enough experiments on myself, and now with the community and the people that I've mentored, that I understand a lot more about these substances. Caffeine gives you short-term energy, and it doesn't give you long-term. It actually drains more energy than it creates. So it's like it gives you a little burst of light, but you pay a price for the little burst of light. And what restriction teaches you how to do is how to deny the short-term light for the long-term light. So by not drinking caffeine, I know my body better. Now, there are things that you can have, like you can utilize vitamin B12 supplementation. That will help boost your energy. You can get active and exercise. I have a speed bag in my gym in my house, and I go down there and shift my energy around with that. You can jump into a cold bath. I know that that's not exciting to a lot of people, but if you have a cold plunge or cold water or a cold shower, that'll boost your energy tenfold what caffeine does. That's what Tony Robbins, one of my mentors, does, is he jumps in a cold plunge. And then there's other nutrients that you can put in your body, like, eat a bunch of oranges, or drink orange juice, or, drink some sort of a juice that's going to give you energy, or, a green juice for that matter. See, one of the things that I share with people that I mentor is, you really have, when people are all focused on money, the reason why they don't have money is because they don't manage their time correctly. And the reason why they don't manage their time correctly is because they don't manage their energy correctly. So if you manage your energy correctly, you'll manage your time correctly. And if you manage your time correctly, you will get money. And so when people are focused on money, they don't realize that start with the energy. And so I treat myself like a professional athlete. I focus, like I put the type of energy into my workouts and energy into, my personal health the same as a professional athlete would, because I need to have the highest, purest, highest vibrational energy I can possibly bring to the table for the work that I do. And when I do that, the money follows.
Oh man, now we're talking energy, right? It's not necessarily right. Hey, you're running out of money, you can't get money. They're not doing their time correctly. They're not utilizing the time correctly. They're running off the wrong type of energy. So I appreciate you for giving us that. You also mentioned, hey, look, I can turn the negative into the positive. So even after I don't want a day, negative into positive. I think there's some type of mind thinking things that you have to do that, right? It is. For someone right now that's struggling, that's constantly being hit with negativity throughout their day, what's a way to look at it in a different perspective?
All right, I'm gonna go old school on you. You got to listen to Notorious B.I.G. Juicy, and he says, "You're damn right I like the life I live because I went from negative to positive." When I heard that growing up, and this was my anthem growing up, the way I was raised, when I heard that song growing up, I was like, I went from negative to positive. And my mind just got simply focused on how do I go from negative to positive. Now, I have to tell you, the more negativity that you have, the more light you can create. That negativity is fuel for positivity. And so the reason why I have a bright light right now and I'm energetic and excited and positive is because I have transmuted the lead, the negativity, into gold, positivity. So every time you take something that happened to you that was negative, say somebody cut you off, and you change your default reaction to that to one of positivity. Let's say your default reaction would be to get angry, cut them back off. You say, you know what? They got to be someplace quicker than me. God bless them. I hope they get there. Maybe they've got something on their heart that they need to tend to. I've been there. Let them pass me. Every time you change your default reaction to a more compassionate reaction, a more empathetic reaction, and a more positive reaction, you literally change the negative into positive. So as your day comes at you, look for opportunities. And when you are challenged, when you have this mindset going on long enough and you get challenged, you will start to look at the challenges and be like, this is excellent, because this challenge is going to create light. I'm going to tackle this challenge. I'm going to address it. I'm going to confront it. I'm going to get stronger and better from it. And most importantly, I'm going to learn the lesson of it. If you can learn the lesson from the things that are happening to you in your life, and you learn what the message was of the problem or the challenge or the setback or the failure or the loss, if you learn that message, you will transmute negative into positive. So anytime something happens that's negative, let's say I get triggered, I get upset, I fall back, I fall off my discipline, which each and every one of us does that all the time. I just realize, okay, what was the lesson that I need to learn there? And then once I learn that lesson, I've taken that negative. I should have no shame in it. I should, in fact, embrace it and own it as this is something that is a part of me now, because I have that in my character, and I've removed that by transmuting that, from negative into positive, by changing my reaction to a response, or even further, by no longer reacting to these things because I'm now proactive about these things.
Man, listen, I think one of the most, what I like so much about what you said is like have that empathy, right? Change your mindset. Okay, maybe this person needs to get in front of me. But I also think like the way social media is now and the way the world is today, I think there's a lot of people listening to this or watching us on YouTube that are in this comparison game, right? They see someone doing what they want to be doing. They haven't gotten there yet. They see somebody that started or created a business knowing that deep inside they should be in that business as well. For that person that's struggling with the comparison, what would be your advice for them?
Every one of us has our own journey, and your soul, has got its own journey. You picked your parents. You've gone through the hardships, the ups, the downs. All of that for a reason. And some of us need to accumulate a certain amount of lessons before our greatness shines. That was my case. Like I had to accumulate, and I still have to accumulate a number of lessons until our greatness shines. And so you can't really compare, because the person that you're looking at might have got their lessons earlier, or they might have got their lessons, more consistently. And so now they're reaping the harvest of those lessons. So you just got to get the lessons in. You got to get the work in. And so we don't want to compare ourselves to others, because, you have no idea what they had to go through to get to where they're at. You're comparing apples and oranges. Each and every single one of us has our own journey, our own lessons that we have to learn, our own chemistry, our own DNA, our own unique fingerprints. Like, we are all unique. So we don't want to compare, but it is okay to look at standards and say to yourself, okay, I want to look at this individual, look at what they're doing, look at what they're creating, and then hold myself to a higher standard. But we should not compare, because you have to learn the lessons. To be a millionaire, it's just simply learning a certain amount of lessons and solving a certain amount of problems. It's that simple.
Man, listen, I like this, man, because I think you just said something I've never heard before, right? Like, forget the comparison of saying, oh, I want to be like them. Look at the standards. Look at how they got to where they were today. I think that, and looking at those standards as almost like a guideline, huge gem you're dropping there. I want to talk about.
I was going to tell you, look for the character trait in the person that you want to emulate. If the person is, selling out stadiums, go, okay, what is it about their artistry or their work ethic? You see Kevin Hart selling out stadiums, like, okay, I'm not Kevin Hart. I can't compare myself to Kevin, but there is something that I can learn from him. And so watch his documentaries, read his books, and try to grab a characteristic of his that you can make one of yours. And once you do that, you will build a character stack and an identity stack of characteristics that are going to make you a very successful person.
Oh man, listen, I'm glad you got that out there, right? Like, because that's a huge key, right? It's looking for those characteristics, like studying that artistry, and like looking at documentaries. All those things are so important. Like, you're one of those fascinating people that I think there's so many different scopes of you, right? Like, we know you're the CEO of Alter Calm Movement, which we'll get into in just a second. But one of the most fascinating things I found out about you is that your love of being a father. I'm a dad. I have 3 beautiful kids, and I think so many times people struggle being just dads. Let's just call it what it is. Like what has been like the biggest lesson for you that now that you're a father? Like, what's been one of those biggest lessons that you can share with us?
Number one is you and I just had this beautiful lesson this morning. You have to forgive each other quickly, and you have to teach forgiveness and give forgiveness quickly. I see so many parents punishing their kids, holding grudges against them, being mad at them, teaching their children that when they do something wrong, to withhold love. And we shouldn't withhold love from our children. We should give love to our children. We should forgive our children as quickly as possible and teach them how to forgive us too, because we don't always get it right. This morning, my son asked me to wake him up at 6:20 a.m. Now, I, as a dad, I wanted him to sleep in. I wanted him to get as much sleep as possible. Yeah. So I woke him up at 7 a.m. He was mad at me this morning. He was like, Dad, I told you I wanted to be woken up at 6:20. And I was like, you're going to have to forgive me on this. I will do better next time. The default reaction would have been like, oh, wake up on your own, set your own alarm or whatever. But no, he was mad at me. I was willing to bear that burden and help him understand that, help him. He's 12 years old, help him understand his emotions. And, and frankly, I want him to be an early riser. And so if my role in that is to help him be an early riser, then, I'll do my job better next time. But, we had to have a good discussion, and he was mad. He's 12 years old. He's emotional and walking around pouting and stuff. And I was like, hey, we got to forgive each other quicker. I forgive you quickly. You got to forgive me quickly. So most important thing I could tell you is forgive quickly and seek forgiveness from your children, and ask your children, say, hey, is there anything that I've done that's on your mind, or anything that you're holding on to, anything that bothers you? Or, I've had this conversation with my son a number of times, and he's brought up some stuff that, I missed. I didn't show up when I said I would, or I let him down a little bit when I did this. And none of us are perfect. And so when he told me that, I was like, okay, I'll get better, and I'll do better as a father. And once you do that and you tell your children, like, I'm committed to growing, then they see an example of growth, and they will commit to growing too. I'm committed to forgiving, they will commit to forgiving too. And eventually, not only will you change the relationship between you and your child, but you will change generations to come, because this wisdom will be imparted from your children to their children and so forth.
Man, this is good. Like, listen, I wish we had this conversation last week, because we just came back from a vacation. We took all 3 of the kids, and I promise you, if I had heard you tell me forgive quickly, that might have been a better trip. So I appreciate that, the transparency and the honesty behind it. When you look at like what you're creating, right, and you look at, you're the CEO of Altar Call Movement. When I say those things, and when you think of Altar Call Movement and where you see it is right now and where you see it going, right? Like what is your vision?
Well, I've been blessed to receive, and this is a spiritual thing. When my mother passed away 4 years ago yesterday, I went through a rock bottom moment. I was devastated. I was in grief. Shortly after that, I would get into a custody battle because I was in rage and I was angry all the time. So I was lashing out. I would lose friends. I would lose a ton of money. I would get, sued by a bunch of different people. So I went through a lot of turmoil 4 years ago. And I decided that I was going to dedicate my life to God and do everything that I could to give back and to teach people whatever I possibly can. I turned over my house to God, my assets to God, my body to God, my mind to God, my experience to God, everything I possibly could. And it took me 2 years of learning to heal myself. I then applied that to my son and healed him and healed my relationship with him and with his mother. I then started healing and helping, mentoring others. And from there, I started getting momentum, and now I have movement on my hands. And I've helped heal many thousands of people. And I say helped because they have to actually do the work. I just tell them the frameworks and the shortcuts and teach them the methods and the practices that accelerate the growth, but they've got to actually do the growth. And so now I have a movement that's just 2 years old. I started it 2 years ago, called Altar Call, where we literally help people alter their lives so they can answer their calling and live a life filled with purpose. And I have the pleasure to work with entrepreneurs and leaders that are growing, and people are accelerating throughout our community. And now I basically grow and help others grow too.
Man, it's powerful, man. And I think it's important because it's something that we all think about. And here's the thing, like you're saying, hey, I'm gonna give you the framework, but at the end of the day, it's up to you, right? If you really want this transformation, this is what you do. So powerful, love it, man. I want to ask you the question that we've asked everybody who has ever been on this platform. Like, if you were that person who just graduated college, or perhaps you didn't even graduate at all, you didn't get no degree, and you're asking yourself the question of the show: school's over, now what? What advice would Ryan Blair give?
Thank you. It's funny. I dropped out of college myself. So I went to my professor my senior year in college, and I was in business school, and I'd gotten into a 4-year university. And that was a big trajectory for me. Like, my family had never been to a prominent university, and I went to him and I said, "Hey, I'm starting a business, and it's taken off, and I'm debating about whether or not I should drop out of school." And he told me, "Ryan, you'll be back here giving the keynote." So if school's out, now what? For me, I would start a business. I would start out as an entrepreneur. You could become a doctor, or you could become a lawyer, or you could become the person that writes the check to the doctor and the lawyer. It's up to you. Being a doctor or a lawyer is noble, but being the entrepreneur that employs the doctor and employs the lawyer, is a whole nother level. And so my advice is, seek sovereignty, seek independence, seek to create a business that is going to solve a problem in our society. The greatest wealth that will ever be created is ahead of us. We're hearing about Elon Musk being, the richest man in the world. He just passed 300 billion in net worth. They're going to be trillionaires shortly. And those trillionaires are going to be trillionaires because they have solved big problems that the world needs. We know the environment is failing. We know there are social justice issues. We know there are all kinds of problems in our society. And that's what entrepreneurs do, is they solve problems. So my call to action for each and every single one of you, school's over, now what? Become an entrepreneur. It is the best profession you could ever get involved in.
Man, I'm glad I'm an entrepreneur, and I'm glad and grateful you have been on this podcast. Listen, man, you crushed it. I've interviewed a lot of people, man, from Ed Milet to Seth Godin to Grammy Award winners. And listen, I'm going on record saying this has been one of the most funnest, interesting, best interviews that I've done, man. I'm going to go back and listen to it. I know the audience is going to love it. They're going to eat it up. And people want to know more about you. They want to, where can they find you? Just give us all your social media and where we can stay updated.
Awesome. Yeah, I'm Real Ryan Blair on Instagram. If you DM me, I'll message you back. I love to create conversations and dive in and mentor you. And, that's it. Just follow me at Real Ryan Blair on Instagram, or you can go to altercall.com. That's ALTERCALL.com.
Ryan, I appreciate you, man. And for those of you that have been listening, always remember, dream it, believe it, go out and get it. Hey, what's up, fam? Thanks for watching. Don't forget, hit that subscribe button, smash that like button. We'll see you next week here at School's Over Now What. And always remember, dream it, believe it, go out and get it.